So we'll dedicate our shir in memory of Yisrael David ben Sion, Stuart Perlman, whose yahrzeit is coming up in just a few days' time, and won't have an opportunity to give another shir before that yahrzeit comes. So I would ask him responsibility. Okay, in memory of his father. And okay, so what we're going to do tonight is hopefully drawing together a few themes all at the same time. What I mean here is, obviously it's Chanuka, so happy Hanukkah, everybody. Right. But to draw together one of the sugyot related to Chanukkah, that's actually going to use as a proof text, one of our sugyot that we learned not too long ago ourselves, having to do with what constitutes something that is vested with being muktzah for a huktzah mitzvato, etc. We've talked about this theme before, but this would be a good opportunity to tie it into to Sukkot. To Sukka and Chanukkah, both. I spoke on Shabbat from a hashkafic perspective, but all sorts of parallels between these two periods of time. They abound. I could have come up with others, but we'll leave the hashkafa there. Focus a little bit on halacha, and we'll see how far we get, just in terms of the sugya. Also, you could. Whatever the word is, you could regale your friends and neighbors and family and tell them, I learned the sugya and halacha having with Chanukah, and it tied into everything we were learning in the world of Sukka. By the by, we also not too long ago learned the sugya about how many brachot you make, about the bracha of Shechianu. The whole unit on that. That was on Mem Vav Amud Aleph. How many brachot you make, and if you're not going to actually light, but you're going to see the first night, you're going to make 2 brachot. We talked about Mem Vav Amud Aleph. That was the whole Gemara there. What we didn't, we did part of, but not all of, is the sugya that you see in front of you on the cover page here, the Gemara Masachet Shabbat and Daf Chaf Bet Amud Aleph. Put it on the screen for those who are on the screen. And the Gemara is discussing the question of the use of the lights for any purpose other than for the purpose of looking at them. We'll see soon the text that we know very well, and Erol Kodeshem.
Shabbos lights or
the Chanukah lights. Vein lan rishul ishtamesh bem elirotam bilvad, right? That we say in Ner Halalu, which is a very old source. If you look into the Gemara here, Masachet Shabbat Daf Chaf Bet Amud Aleph, we find that it's at the 2 dots that are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, about a dozen lines down. The first word on the line is actually miyamin. And then there's a colon. It's Amarav Yehuda, Amarav Asi, Amarav. Yeah. Some hold that there is an Amarav there. Some say there isn't. There's a whole discussion. That's more like a philological discussion, some sort of like a bibliographical question, probably more philological. So I'm going to skip it. Rav said it, or Ravasi said it. And that is, Asr lahartzat ma'ot keneged ner Chanukah. You're not allowed to count money in the face of, or in the presence of the Chanukah candles. Also, I could throw in here for good measure, coins are very much in the news. Not only the coins that were found that reportedly the Maccabees hid away, but a coin thief, an artifact thief who played dumb when they caught him up north, had a coin or several coins in his possession. On one side was whatever the picture was, on the other side was the face of Antiochus Epiphanes IV, Yamach Shemo V'Zichro, on the coin that he minted in Eretz Yisrael or thereabouts, in the area of Syria, in the Syrian territory. So the coins are very much in the news. So the halacha is, don't count your coins as against the light of the Chanukah candles. Ki amarita kami de Shmuel, when they said this, when this limud was taught in front of Shmuel, Shmuel was essentially aghast, and he asked, Amar le, v'chiner kedusha yeshba? What, the candle is going to have some kind of inherent kedusha? How could that be? What does that mean? How does it even compute? But Kedusha, you say that what should the reason be that it's forbidden to count the money by the light of the Chanukiah? That's he's saying. Well, do you think there's some Kedusha inherent in it? So Matkifla Rav Yosef questioned Shmuel, and he said, Shmuel, just because we were told that you're not allowed to count money in the presence of, or by the light of the Ner Chanukah. So does that mean the next step is to, therefore, it's because it has Kedusha? Kedusha yeshbo? Do you think the blood at a time of Shechita has Kedusha? The Shechita of a Chaya or an oath requires a mitzvah min haTorah of Kisui Hadam. We cover the blood with earth. Yes, you could say this predates it by a few 100 years, but yes, maybe. Is there sanctity in the blood? The Tanya, as we learned, v'shafach v'chisa. You spill the blood, right? That comes out, and then cover it immediately, right? B'mashi shafach yichaseh. That which you used in order to cause the blood to be spilled, i.e., your hand that held the knife that did the shachting, that's what should be doing the covering. You shouldn't use your foot to kick earth on top of the blood that's on the ground. Why? You don't want mitzvot to be degraded upon you, that you're kicking it with your foot. It's not nice. Therefore, you have to have basically the afer. You pick it up and you drop it on the blood, right? So hachinami shlo yehu mitzvot bezuyot alav. In other words, if Yosef says to Shmuel, "What are you telling me that you're surprised or somehow upset, whatever the word is, you're challenging the idea that the Ner has Kedusha. Why do you think that was the Isser? Maybe the Isser was, as Rav Yosef explained, Shaloyu mitzvah bezuyat alav. It's a question of bizui mitzvah. We don't want to do something that is essentially degrading a dvar mitzvah. Yeah. So that's part one of the sugya. Part two now circles around to what we're up to in our Gemaras in Sukka. Question?
Isn't the whole mitzvah parsuma nisa? Okay. And
Yeah.
Parsuma nisa is you're not getting from a Menora, you're getting from the Menora.
Yeah, right.
No, so that would be Kedusha.
Oh, the fact that it's pursuing nisa. Okay, so it's a good point. And the question is going to be, are those two things coterminous? Meaning you're fulfilling the idea of Pursume Nisa. When we say something has Kedusha, therefore you're not allowed to use it, we generally refer to some object or place or person that has some kind of inherent status that is, I would say, closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you have Sefer Torah, Tefillah, Mezuzah as objects. You have the Kedusha of the Beit Knesset that is probably, this is certainly according to the Rambam, vested in the fact there's an Arn Kodesh there with Sefer Torah in it. The Sefer Torah notes are makdi shit, such that even if you took Sefer Torah out, Rahman al-Islam, the Beit Knesset would still retain its Kedusha. A Kohen, the Kidashto. Thank you, Kohen. No, but it happens to be true. I didn't make it up. Lo ani tchilat Kedusha. Zeh keli v'anveu elokei avi v'ramenu. What does Rashi say there in that pasuk? I'm not the beginning of Kedusha. Comes already from the beginning. So everybody here has Kedusha at Israel. Kohanim have an extra level of Kedusha. That's the reality. That's Zeminat Torah. That's how it is.
Well, we have a commandment for
the whole people. That's an aspiration. But we also have Kedusha, inherent Kedusha at Israel, inherent. And Hanukkah, they'd say we all have some Kohanic element that we're bringing to bear, but the Kohanim are still the Kohanim, the Kidashto. There's still, there's a halachic implications to that. So it's not so easy to say just because it's Pursume Nisa that means there's Kedusha. It could be Pursume Nisa. Judy, want to say something?
Yes, I have a question. Is the prohibition perhaps to do ve'en lanu reshut leishtamesh bahem?
No, that is it. But that's how I started the shiur. That line, it's more than that. And when we daven, we say the Haneret Halalu. The Haneret Halalu is very old. It's from Sechet Sofrim, Masechtot Ktanot. So it's just around the time of the finishing of the Gemara, around that time. And we say that's where the core of the text comes from. What do we say? Haneret Halalu, Kodesh Hem. Kodeshem. Ve'ein lanu reshut leishtamesh bahem, and we're not allowed permission to use them. Ella lirot b'vad. We just look at them. So if did Shmuel not say those few words? Maybe he skipped them. Maybe he didn't say Erinor Kodeshem because does the Ner have Kedusha? So Rav Yosef said to him, well, does Kisui Adam have Kedusha? No, but there's an element here of shouldn't be Bizui Mitzvah. When you're counting money, that's a common action. That's not a respectable thing to be doing with the mitzvah, the dvar mitzvah. Comes to the next section of the Gemara now. We're up to Bo Minei Mi Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. First word on that line was the word alav. Follow your eye along. I have the next thing, yeah? Bo Minei Mi Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Moli stopik minoye Sukka kol shiva. Oh, here we are. Yeah. They asked Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Can you? The first line. There's a triangle. You got it. Okay, you got the coin sitting next to you. Good. It helped you. It's good. It's all good. He's got Kedusha. Don't sell it short. So maybe you should be allowed to use the decorations that are in the sukkah, right? At the top in Rashi here, perot shetolin balanoi, all the things you put up for decorative purposes, right? So the Gemara says, right? Amar Le answered him, Hare Amru also lahartzot mod keneged ner Chanukah. No, you shouldn't do it because we also know you're not allowed to count money by the light of the Chanukah menorah. So Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef replies, for the same Rav Yosef who was in the Gemara before about the Kisoy Hadam business. And he says, Mari Davram, which is the equivalent of like man alive. I heard Rav Lichtenstein say that a few times. Man alive was his like, what? That's what he would say. That's as far as he got into like, like a, I don't know, call it an expletive, but like an exclamation. That's the most I'd ever hear. Mari Davram. That's his master of Avram, meaning, like today the kids would say OMG. OMG. Yeah. So, and he says, Tali Tanya, Bidelo Tanya, you're learning something that is actually learned directly from Psukim, in the Torah, a mitzvah, midoraita, from something it's not actually midoraita. I mean, what are you talking about? And by the by, but Tali, Rashi here says, Sukka, the Tanya B'braita Behedya. With regard to Sukka, as we'll learn momentarily, it actually is a Braita Masachet Sukka, which we did learn many moons ago, which we just learned again not so long ago, because we're talking about Shmini Safek Shvi. We'll see Tosfot's going to bring that up right on this page. And what did we see? That there was a Beferish Braita, like there's actually a limud that tells us that when it comes to Sukkah, you're not allowed to use the decorations, the fruits that are hanging from the ceiling, right? You can't just take them off in the middle of Sukkot. They're Hoktil Mitzvato. So you want to learn from Chanukah, you want Chanukah to teach Sukkah? Sukkah, we know already. So what are you mixing in about Chanukah with Sukkah, right? Tali Tanya B'delot Tanya, right? Ner Chanukah, which was the statement of Rav Asi, a few lines up. You're not allowed to count the money by the light of the Chanukah lich. And Shmuel didn't like that idea. And it wasn't a Braita. That was already an Amora making a statement, right? That was the first word we started with today, right? The Gemara had said, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav Asi, Asr lahartzot mod keneged ner Chanukah. You're not allowed to count the money facing ner Chanukah. And when they said that to Shmuel, he said, what are you talking about? It doesn't have Kedusha. And Rav Yosef said to Shmuel, I'm sorry, who said anything about the word Kedusha? The reason Rav Asi said what he said is it's degrading. End of Act 1. Act 2, they asked you B'Shub and Levi, are you allowed to use the decorations in your sukkah? He's also an Amora. The decorations in the sukkah? And the answer that he gave was, no, you're not allowed. You know why? Because you're not allowed to count the money by the Chanukah licht. So Shmuel heard this. Sorry, Rav Yosef heard this. And he said, like, what? They asked you a question about Sukkah. Why don't you just quote a Braita? What are you going a Shmeidrei to go back to Chanukah, which is a statement by an Amora, which is not insignificant, but you have a much stronger case to be made right out of a Braita, which is Tanaitic. A Braita means it was essentially on the level of a Mishnah, but didn't quite make the grade, so it's not in the Mishnah. But that's what we're always comparing Mishnah and Braita, because a Braita means outside, external, an external section of the Mishnah. It's not in the redacted version. We're always comparing the Braita and the Mishnah, etc. So he says Sukkah Tanya. Chanukah lo Tanya. Sukkah, we have a Beferisha Braita, and for it's Meforash, and for Chanukah we don't have that. The Tanya, and this we already learned, right? If you look at the superscript little letter Hey, and you would hold your finger there and go up to the to the little superscript piece, it'll tell you all the other places it appears in Shas. It tells you it's further along in Sechet Shabbat on page 45a, Beitza 30b, and Sukkah 10a, which is where we saw it. I think we actually saw it on 11 in our version, but okay. The Tanya. Sicha kihilchata ve'itra bekramim uvestinin hametzuyarin v'talaba egozim afarsikin shkeidim v'rimonim v'farchile anavim v'atarot shel shibolim yenot shmanim v'salatot. So you decorated your sukkah halachically, meaning beautifully. You put different decorations. You have wall hangings. You have curtains. You have whatever else you hung up there. Then you put up all kinds of fruits, right? Nuts, fruits, everything's hanging in whatever it is, jars or hanging loose, but they're all there, and it's all happening there. Asli stopik mehen, you're not allowed to use them ad motzei yom tov ha'achron shel chag. You can't use it until the end of the last yom tov, meaning Shmini Atzeret. You can't use these things that are in your sukkah. V'im hitna alehen, if you made a t'nai, meaning you made some kind of a a condition. When did you make that condition? Right before the Yom Tov started, right? We find out that the person said, the Gemara in Beitza gives us that. Rashi quotes it here. The Gemara in Beitza that at Ben Hashmash, you said any bodel before Ben Hashmash, you said, I'm not going to be separated from these items, even though they're in my sukkah. They're not part of the sukkah. They're still mine. I can use them if I so choose. You made it tonight. Hakol fitna'o, right? So Ella Amar of Yosef, Rav Yosef said, Avun de kulhu dam. The parent of all of these, conceptually, is really blood. Blood, meaning kisui hadam, meaning don't do things that are degrading to the mitzvahs themselves. And if you look in Rashi, avun dekulu, which is there's a little straight line there with the decoration over the word Tosfot Yisanim. So 2 lines above that, it's the margin. Avun dekulu sheyilmadu kulam mimenu. What should they all learn it from? Dam kisui hadam. The nafkalan mikra v'shafach v'chisa. Right? You should spill the blood and then cover, meaning you spill the blood using your hand, cover it with your hand. Because the idea there was, don't do something that is degrading to the mitzvah. Okay? So that's right there. What I'm trying to do tonight is, it's Chanuka, beautiful, but we already have tools from our world of Masechet Sukka that actually inform this discussion, are part of it. And when you look at Tosfot on this page, Dibur Hamatchil Asli Stapek Mehen, right? Admod say Yom Tov Achron, the Balei Tosfot give us some extra information. And that has to do with the Daled Minim. We're back to the Daled Minim. I know we already really left this sugya, but it's germane in a way. In the last month or so, we covered this. So the fact that on the last day, meaning on Yom Tov Achron, on the 8th day, we're allowed to use the etrog. Remember, we're eating it, we're playing with it, whatever we're doing, more than the sukkah. Befarish Perak Lulav Arava, we find this in Perak Lulav Arava on page 46b. We learned this together very recently. My point is just to show you the ksharim. When you're learning a Masechet Sukkah, it's connected to the sugya over here with Chanuka, with the whole issue, right? And it explains it here. Mishum de sukkah b'safik shvi, safik shmini. Because when we comes to sukkah and we're not sure, is it the 7th day or is it the 8th day, yatuva yatvinan, we do sit in the sukkah, even though we don't make a bracha. Yeah? V'imit ramile seuda bein hashmashot, if you would have a suda bein hashmashot from the 7th day into the 8th day, achile hatam, you would eat it inside the sukkah. V'hoyel v'it katzi bein hashmashot, eat katzi kula yoma, shel safek shmini, right? V'chi, right? If you weren't sure, and this is now a chiddush, he wants to maintain that if they're going in the Chutz La'aretz, 8th day into the 9th day, since the 8th day is 8th day, maybe 7th day, then going from the 8th day into the 9th day, meaning Leil Simchas Torah, as Simchas Torah starting before it's totally dark out, you decide the last second, I'm going to make a meal. Where do you eat it? You have to eat it in your sukkah. Safik Yom, Safik Laila, and you have to be choshesh that there's still a mitzvah, Mina Torah, that you have to eat it in the sukkah. So once that happened, so now, all right, v'hoyel v'it katzai ben hashmashot, since it was already muktzah on the ben hashmashot moment, it katzai kula yoma shel safek shmini b'ti. All right, it's going to go to 8, the day 9, which really may be day 8. We have Simchas Torah, it might really be Shmini Atzeret. And the question could fairly be asked, how do we come? We don't say Geshem twice, and right, and other things. And we talked about a little bit why that might be, and has to do with what we do and don't know really about what the suffix is. But from a halachic vantage point, Shmini, suffix, now it's Chi, suffix Shmini. Aval etrog enoni taba suffix Shvi v'Shmini. When it's day 8, which really may be day 7, we don't pick up the etrog, as we learned, right? V'lo itzar b'suffix Shmini. It's not going to be usher in the suffix Shmini, right? Well, it's a suffix. Sorry, over here it's Shmini, suffix Shmini, suffix Shvi is really what should be here. The aleph from the Goda Bach. If you look in the margin, it says suffix Shvi, suffix Shmini. Like, right? It's not forbidden. Then El Mishum to Katzai Ben Hashmashot Shel Shvi, right? Because when it was going into the 7th day, that was going to make it muktzah, but going to the 8th day, it's not. V'afapi the Ben Hashmashot Shel Shmini Nami Asur Mishum Shu Suffix Yom. Hoyovlo Asur El Mishum Safek Yom B'Safek Laila Loy Katzai B'Kach Kula Yoma Mida Dehava Abeitz Shenolda Bezeh Demutaret Bezeh. We have a principle: if an egg is laid on one day of Yom Tov, you can eat it the next day of Yom Tov, right? Because one of those 2 days is not actually Yom Tov. So either the egg was laid on the first day of Yom Tov, and that day really is Yom Tov, in which case the second day is no longer Yom Tov, so it's mutter, or the egg was laid on the first day of Yom Tov, which is not really Yom Tov, in which case it was born before Yom Tov, in which case you're eating it on the second day, which is Yom Tov, but it was born the day before. Either way, nolda b'zeh, muteret b'zeh. Do you follow? So he wants to say, look, when it comes to the etrog, it's a little bit the chicken and the egg question, you could say, right? Since on the seventh day, right before the mitzvah, eighth day suffix, seventh day, we're not going to take the etrog. So now at the last few seconds of the seventh day going to the eighth day, we're not really going to pick up the etrog anymore. We're done with it. We talked about other Rishonim who pointed out, what if you're standing in the Beit HaMikdash and they're standing? But his point here is just to say, even though the Ben HaShmashit of the eighth day, going to the eighth day, is also usher, because it's a suffix yom, right? Since it's not really itself usher, it's isser is only because of a suffix yom, suffix laila itself. So we say that we're not gonna say that it's muktzah and ben hashmashot enough that it'll carry over to the next day. Ergo, already on the last day, you can make use of the etrog as we do, and if we wanted to, the last day of the whole Yom Tov, right? So what we saw here, though, is this discussion about what's the status of the money being counted in front of the Chanukiah. The mitzvah shouldn't be mevuzeh. According to Shmuel, at least, it's nothing to do with Kedusha. Nothing to do with Kedusha. The Gemara that I didn't give you, but I could have given you, I just chose not to because for want of time, how much can we see in one night, is actually what appears on the next page. We can skip around a little bit. The next page of the sources, I'll put it up on the screen. The first source is the Rambam, which, if we have time, we'll come back to the Rambam. It's a little bit out of order, but we have to contend with the reality that we have another Gemara, and this other Gemara tells us, if you look in the middle of the page, it's a one-sentence Gemara. There's a lot more to it, but I could only fit in one sentence and still make it a shir, right? It's a famous shita, kavta ein zakukla, ve'asu lishtamish la'or. That's the whole Gemara. Gemara Masechet Shabbat, the middle of the page, one sentence. You see it? The one line all by itself. If you set up the parameters, assuming you set up the parameters of the Chanukiah properly and you light it, if it goes out, you do not have to relight it. Ein zakukla. And by the way, aser lishtamish la'or. That's actually the halacha. You're not allowed to use the light. There, the Gemara did not get into a whole thing about, well, does that have Kedusha? Does it not? Just kind of made the statement as such, and it sort of left it like that. What we have to contend with, which is the reality of things, is the source right above that in the Tur. And that's what I mentioned before. The Tur says, Garsino Masechet Sofrim, it's the second source on the page. We learn Masechet Sofrim, Hamadlik, right? The one who lights, Acha Shehidlik Omer, after he lights, he starts to say, Haner Lalu Anamadlikin, Ala Chuot, Valanisim, Valaniflot. We're almost that version in the ones we have printed. Shasit Lavotenu, Aide Kohanecha Hakedoshim, V'chol Shmonat Yimei Chanukah, Haner Lalu Kodeshem. Hein. Ben Roten Bilvad. Right? So in this very sentence, we're declaring that there's Kedusha to it, right? But we just finished seeing in the Gemara that Shmuel said, no, there isn't. And then we have another Gemara that just says, Asli Shtamish La'ora. It doesn't truly explain what's going on. So, yeah. Yeah, please.
Can you ascribe Kedusha to something without a bracha, without Hashem?
Yeah, if you're makdish something, you could. Yeah. But again, we're trying to say, well, what's the nature of the Kedusha here?
I understand.
Yeah.
You're going with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have different views about how to see this. I want to show you next on this sheet, but it's really on the next page. The Baal Hamor. The Baal Hamor is at the top of the next page. His first source to Amara Katan, Rabbeinu Zrachi HaLevi. What does he teach? He says the following. Okay, and you're going to see a nafkamina lahalacha in terms of what we do and don't do. Lamanda Amar Asli Shtamish Laora Shel Ner Chanuka, the one who holds that it's forbidden, full stop, to use the light of the Chanuka without specifying what the activities are. You're not allowed to use it. That's one statement. Another one is you can't count money in front of it. Sounds like exactly the same thing, not necessarily, because that opinion holds kol tashmish b'mashma, any usage is forbidden. Afilu tashmish de mitzvah. Even that which is a permitted act because it's also a mitzvah action. I mean, right. Anything. V'tashmish kedusha, mishum, v'tashmish kedusha, or anything that has to do with kedusha. Mishum de kasavar, because that's of the opinion, this is really astounding, kevan shehem zeichel aneirot v'lashemen shel heichal, asurot hein bahana'a kol ikar. That's the money line of this section. since that opinion says, why is it forbidden? It doesn't explain what things are forbidden. Everything's forbidden to use in front of the candles, Hanukkah candles, just looking at them, just like in Anerod. Why? Because the point of lighting those candles is in memory of and to remind us of the Nerod and the Shemen that were used in the sanctuary in the Beit HaMikdash, which was Aser B'Hana altogether. Afilu likro b'sefer, v'afilu l'sudat Shabbat, l'sudat mitzvah. It's a holy purpose. Why can't I use it? Nothing. Why? Dugma, what went on in the Beit HaMikdash. Ulamanda Amar Aser lahartzot mod keneged ner shel Chanukah davka hartzaat ma'ot uchiyotze ba. The one who said it's forbidden to count money in front of the Hanukkah candles, they just meant things like counting money. Why? Shehi tashmish reshut v'shel chol, because that's a volitional activity. That's a mundane activity. Uchedeka pirish ta'ameh, as it explained, mishum bizuye mitzvah. Remember, that's what the Gemara concluded that we learned tonight. It's degrading to the mitzvah. You're counting your money in front of it. You go find some other light. Aval tashmish mitzvah, v'tashmish kedusha, mutar lishtamish laora. But if you were using it for your Shabbos light in the room, you want to make a siyum, you want to learn how to shear for the Chanukah, why not? According to Shmuel's read, right, and Rav Yosef's read, this is not about inherent Kedusha. It's just about the fact that you don't want to do degrading things in front of it, right? Shmuel, Timatama al v'chiner Kedusha yespo, lo svarle de eat beisrach Kedusha. Shmuel's question is, I don't think there's any Kedusha to this thing at all. So this is a prohibited, like something belonging to Hekdesh. You can't have Hana from it. That's not what's going on here. It doesn't belong to temple treasury. You made it in your house. It's not Isser Hana. Right? There's no bizui mitzvah, degradation of the mitzvah by using it for holy purposes, good purposes. The Shibbolei Haleket writes it this way. The Tur writes it this way and explains that there's two views. You should be aware. We don't have time to see it inside. But the Ramban, the Rashba, the Ran, the Meiri, the Ritva, and the Nimukei Yosef all hold that Rav Asi is just adding to those statement of Asur Lishtamish La'ora. They think that he's saying, why did he pick the example of counting money? Not because it's degraded, which it is, because you would think, how degraded is it really? I'm not doing something literally degrading. I'm counting money. People, it's a functional thing. And that Rav Asi is, according to all those opinions, he's actually adding to Asur Lishtamish La'ora, not like the Baal HaMoar holds, but he's saying the Bizui mitzvah is using it for any purpose that is not actually a mitzvah purpose. Anything volitional is the problem, as opposed to the way the Baal HaMoar, the Shibbolei Haleket, and the Tur understood Shmuel is just saying, don't do degrading things in front of it. But if it's something that, it's of a higher caliber of action, that should be okay. And the Shulchan Aruch actually codifies all these different opinions. The bottom line, when you walk out of here, you should be aware, you cannot use your Hanukkah candles for anything other than to look at them. And that's why one of the reasons we have a shamash, we have other ambient light in the room, but we should be aware that the Shulchan Aruch himself, the bottom source over here, which didn't come out in the right font, so it's hard to know who's saying what, but he writes in the middle of it, V'yesh mishamati b'tasmei shel kedusha. There are those who do permit, right? There are those, that's after he told you, you're not allowed, and you can't use it. Asli shtamas b'ner Chanukah, bein b'Shabbat, bein b'chol, v'afil livdok ma'ot, even v'afil livdok ma'ot. Even something as simple as checking your money. Ola manodam to count them, l'ora asur, afil tashmish shel kedusha, going l'ilmud Torah asur, even that's forbidden. But there are those who are matir tashmish shel kedusha. Where did all this come from? It's all from right here. And therefore, there's a minhag to have another candle lit. The shamash should be lit at the same time. Okay. In closing, I want to see one more piece of this, which is the next page, a piece from the Harei Kedem, where you're going to see. What can I tell you? I'm a glut. I can't stay away. It's my Rabbi's Rabbi, and they had just unbelievably masterful Torahs. If we don't bring up his Torahs, who's gonna bring them up? We got to learn them. Okay, so we got to learn it. So I'm showing you inside the next section of this. Okay, this is the Harei Kedem. The Harei Kedem. The Inyan. This is Rav Soloveitchik's Torah, written up by Rav Michal Shurkin in his 2-volume work. Be'inyan zeich l'mikdash v'anacha osim mitzvah. So look at Aleph here. Mitzvat hadlaka kezeich l'menora. Okay. Now, what the Rav is about to do, fasten your seatbelts, he's going to weave together the Rambam, the Baal HaMoar, historical issues, and the whole thing's going to come together, and watch what happens. You'll see it unfold before your very eyes for the next 8 minutes. Here we are. I give it to you in the sources, but we don't have time to see it. And so I would just read it in the rough. On account of this, the sages of the generation enacted that these 8 days starting on the 25th day of Kislev should be days of joy or gladness and of Hallel, recitation of Hallel, and we light the candles at the edge of the houses each evening. Ayin Sham Od. See the rest over there. V'yesh l'daktik b'lashon Rambam. We should look carefully at the words of the Rambam. Shekatav umadlikin kedavar b'fnei atzmo. V'lo, he wrote madlikin as if it was on a standalone. He didn't say Yimei Simcha v'Halel v'Adlakat Neirot. The Rambam wrote Yimei Simcha v'Halel, comma, umadlikin by him. The comma's not there, but he put an and there, right? Simcha v'Halel, umadlikin, but he didn't say these are days characterized by Simcha, Halel, and Adlakat Neirot. It's Simcha and Halel, and what is one of the things we do? We light candles. He didn't say it as a continuity. You may simcha v'halel. We have to understand. He's making it sound, the Rambam, in his language. It's like this is the what is it? The I don't know what to say. The perceptive view of a brisker. That this is how the Rambam wrote it. Something strange here, right? And we also do this practice on this day. But it's not fundamental to the day. How could that be? That's what Chanukah is. Bottom paragraph. Vid hanire. Let me just translate that and let it sink in for half a minute. There's a suffix, if at the time when there was a Beit HaMikdash standing, whether or not they lit the candles for Chanukah in order to publicize the miracle. Because there's a Beit HaMikdash standing, the Rav is going to suggest, it's going to sound pretty crazy, they didn't light Chanukah candles. There was no such takana at the beginning. We have to judge this and understand, to say, the nerot that they made were in the place of the menorah in the mikdash. And it was in order to publicize the miracle regarding the menorah. At the beginning of Chanukah, they didn't actually tell people you have to light Chanukah candles. They told them there's the days of Simcha and Hallel. Once it was no longer a Beit HaMikdash, there no longer could be a menorah that was being lit. Now everybody has to do it in their house. That's for Shurkin writing. Top of the next paragraph. We don't have a lot of time. We could say in the view of the Rambam that he held this way. Why? That it was only after the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. The Rambam split it off. The tikkun of the Nerot, the tikkun, the enactment of the Nerot, was after the fact. Mitakanat Yemei Simcha v'Halel, from the enactment of days of Simcha and Halel. Why? Lefisha takanat Yemei Simcha v'Halel hitkunu chacham sheba'oto hador. That was in that generation. V'ilu takanat hanerot nitkana b'dor mu'charim yoter la'achar churban kezeicher lemenorah shebamikdash. And now he says, I'm going to answer for you a question that you probably had and never was had the gumption to ask. And that is the next paragraph. Which I did not give you. My Chanukah. Why is there a Chanukah? What's Chanukah? Right? 8 days where we're not allowed to fast, we're not to give hispadim, because the Yevanim came in, they did all these things, and then the Jewish people came back and they found one pach shemen, right? How come lo katuv klal hadlakat neirot? How come in that whole piece, which is from Megillat Ta'anit, that's a quote in the Gemara from something called Megillat Ta'anit, which was a scroll of the days you're not allowed to fast? How come it didn't mention that they also enacted? So they made Shana Acheret Asu Kavuum v'Asaum Liyemei Halal v'Hodah. The sages the next year or some years later made them days of Hallel and Thanksgiving. How about they also said you have to light Hanukkah candles? Why isn't it Megillat Ta'anit? The answer, says the Rav, is very simply, right? Why does it say the third line in that paragraph there? Ella, right? Bezem Yusuf Ma, that paragraph, third line. Ella Yom Tov B'Halav Hodah. That's the only thing it said. It's explained exactly according to what we're saying. The reason for this exactly what I explained earlier. The Braita Zu Yisodab Begilat Ta'anit. This is this section, that section of the Gemara about the story of Chanukah, the little piece that we have, that everybody knows so well from 21b and from Masachet Shabbat. That's from Megillat Ta'anit. Shinit Chabra Od Kodem HaChurban, was written before the Churban of the Beit HaMikdash. Ula'achar HaChurban Batla Megillat Ta'anit. It was canceled, nullified after Megillat Ta'anit, after the Churban. V'hi Braita Rishona B'Tor Sheba'al Peh Diyumin Chanukah. That is the first Braita in the whole oral Torah that deals with Chanukah. Uve'oto Zman B'Zman HaMikdash Lo Tiknu L'Neirot Chanukah. That's why it's not there, because they didn't have that takana initially. Lefisha HaMenora Haita Doleket B'Mekom HaMikdash. There was a menorah, and it was standing, and it was burning each day. Didn't you ever wonder how Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel are arguing about how many candles are supposed to be lit? What did they do last year, or the year before, or the year before? Beit Shammai says 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and Beit Hillel 1, 2, 1 through 8. What's the machloket? What did we do last year? What did we do all these other centuries? There's a machloket because the Beit HaMikdash is not standing anymore, and therefore he puts in brackets for Shirkin, Ubeit Shammai, Ubeit Hillel, Hayugam Achar Churban. Those schools continued after the Churban. Hillel and Shammai are alive when there still is a Beit HaMikdash. So this is Beit Shammai say, go down. Beit Hillel say, go up, yeah? And that's why the Gemara is later even trying to figure out why did they say 8 to 1, 1 to 8. And they're trying to figure it out in later generations, well after the takana of the Neirot was made. Ve'ein emet ezeu chidus gadol. The truth, it's true that this is a big, very novel point. This is the pashut that I have in the Gemara. Now turn to the next page for the exciting conclusion. I can prove what I'm saying. You know from who? Mishitat habal hamaor that we just learned tonight. Beperak bet Shabbat. Shekatav, because he wrote Lemanda Amar Asur Lishtamish Laora Shel Ner Chanukah, the one who holds that it's forbidden. Full stop. Just forbidden. Doesn't matter what the task is. Even for Kedusha type things, Kadosh type things, mitzvah type things, you can't use Ner Chanukah. You know why? Kol Tashmish Mashma. What had he written? Afilu Tashmish Mitzvah Tashmish Kedusha. Mishum de Savar is the Baal HaMaor talking now that the Rav is quoting. Kevan Shehem Zecher Lanerot V'Lashem Shel Heichal. Since they're in memory of the lamps, the candles, and the oil of the Heichal, of the sanctuary of the Beit HaMikdash, therefore Asur Hein Bahana Kol Ikar. That's why it's that way. Once it was enacted in memory of the oil, in memory of the candles as they stood in the Heichal, but stand no longer. If it's a zecher to something, it's because it doesn't exist anymore. Uve'emet kishitat habal hamor kach have shitat hamasachet sofrim. That is exactly the same shita as Masachet Sofrim, namely Shenerot Chanukah Heim Kodesh Ve'asurot Be'isr Hana Kineirot HaMikdash, just like the Neirot of the Mikdash. Shahare Kach Katuv in Masachet Sofrim Benusach HaNeirot Halalu HaNeirot Halalu Kodesh Heim Ve'ein Lan Rishut Lishtamesh Bahem Ve'Kodesh Hainu Kikodshim Mamish. It's like their Kodshim, right? And Rabbi Shurkin throws it La Fuke Mishmuel, to the exclusion of what Shmuel said in the Gemara. V'chir ner Kedusha yeshbo. This view disputes that view. Umavur kebal hamar the ner Chanukah hu kodesh kineged shemen v'nerot shel heichal v'im kein nira the takana the chol hatakana eina ela la'achar churban. It only came up after the churban. V'chemo kein yesh lochich me'Ramban. We can prove this in the Ramban also. The Reish Parshat Ba'alotcha. Everybody knows this Ramban. Been used in drushes many times. Shabir Shenerot Shel Aaron Ein B'Teil L'Olam B'Adlaket Ner Chanukah. That the Ramban says, right, that Aaron, when it says that Aaron Cohen didn't feel well, he felt bad, he didn't have any option, he didn't do anything. The Nesim all gave gifts. What are he going to do? What did it say? Some told him yours is greater than theirs because you're going to be Madlik and make an Aaron every single day. The Ramban says not just every single day, but it was a hint to Aaron Cohen that he was going to also have Ner Chanukah. They're in the place of the array that was put in the mikdash. He quotes one last piece here. We'll close with this, and we have to finish. We're not going to do the other piece. This is all we need for tonight. V'yuan od b'rayvid perak yud aleph be'ilchot brachot shabir b'tamad demilta d'birkat ner Chanukah mevarchim lahadlik be'lamed v'lo be'al alpha gav the chol mitzvah midivrei sov mevarchim ba'al. He has a theory in general, the Ravid, that if a mitzvah that's midrabanan, you say al. If it's a mitzvah that's on a higher plane, you say le. It's debatable and disputable because there are a bunch of mitzvahs that I can point to that are drabanan that there's a le. But okay, but all right. Shekatov inami pnei shezu habracha hukbe'a al hanerot sheba mikdash shehein shel Torah. The Ravid says, why is it lahadlik ner shel Chanukah? Even though I have a rule, says the Ravid, that generally if it's a mitzvah that's made up being derabanan, that's medina derabanan, you say al mikra Megillah. We'll use this as an example. Why is it not al hadlaka nera? Why is it lit? because at its core it is something Midin Torah, which is this is the bracha that they would say in the Menora of the Beit Mikdash, which is Mina Torah. Leficha gam ner Chanukah aseu kishel Torah. Uvur shenemar the ner Chanukah nitkan lezecher ner Mikdash v'nikbea lahem bracha kimenor Mikdash. The bracha, according to this view, that we say, even though the Gemara itself on 23a in Shabbat says, where do we learn it? And it answers, two different answers that how the Chazal, they made this bracha. The Ravid is claiming, why it's lahadlik ner shel Chanukah? Because really this is the bracha that Aaron Cohen would recite when he was lighting the Chanukah licht, but not Chanukah licht, the ner to the Mikdash licht. And every Kohen Gadol, every Kohen, didn't have to be a Kohen Gadol every day, but every Kohen who did it, that's the bracha they would make. What bracha can a Yisrael ever say? But you can't say Kedusha shel Aaron, Yisrael. But the once a year we do get to do that. Al Yedei Kohanecha Kadoshim, who did it then, but that's what we're saying. Mamlechet Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh in their homes makes a zecher la Menora, and therefore us l'shtamish la'or. Therefore, we can make such a large a declaration that the whole thing is an little kodashim. In what sense? In the sense that this is dugma of the mikdash. Now we have certain safeguards in there. There's 8 branches, not 7, because it's an 8-day festival, and so we don't say it's literally the menorah, etc. But certainly in the Beit Knesset, that is what we're trying to do. Putting on the south wall, right? The way we stand, how we light it, all those things, they're all right. We light it again during the morning when we're davening. All of those things, all zeichel and menorah. So the Rav says that's what's going on in this Gemara over here, and I think it's a beautiful Torah. You can keep it with you for the rest of the days of the Yontif. We learned tonight Leonishma Yisrael David Ben Sion, Neshama Shabbat Aliyah, and wish everyone a Freilich Chanukah, Lichting Chanukah, and a Yasher Koach, and thank you Ira for sponsoring tonight. And all the best. We'll talk to everyone soon, and wish you that's it. All good things. Sei gesund.
Okay.